Chapter 3. The Weight of Waiting. The days that followed Thomas's punishment settled into a rhythm of forced normalcy that set Isaiah's teeth on edge. The cotton harvest had begun in earnest, and the fields demanded every hand from dawn until well past dusk. The work was backbreaking, bending, picking, dragging the heavy sacks that grew heavier with each passing hour. Isaiah's hands moved automatically, plucking the white bolls from their sharp casings while his mind turned over the details of their plan for the 100th, the 1,000th time. 3 weeks, maybe 4 if the Belmonts delayed their departure. That was all the time they had left. The sun beat down mercilessly despite the approaching autumn, and sweat stung Isaiah's eyes as he worked his row. 2 rows over, he could see Samuel working with the fierce intensity that had become characteristic of the boy since Thomas's capture. The teenager attacked the cotton plants as if they were his personal enemies, his movements sharp and angry. Elijah worked beside her brother with quieter determination, her smaller hands just as quick despite her youth. Isaiah worried about Samuel. The boy's rage was a fire that could either forge them into something stronger or consume them all. Easy. Son, Moses' deep voice rumbled from the adjacent row. The blacksmith had been assigned to field work during the harvest, his skilled hands temporarily devoted to cotton instead of iron. You'll wear yourself out before noon at that pace. Samuel didn't slow down. Don't matter. Rather work myself to death than live like this. Living's the point, Moses said quietly. Can't be free if you're dead. The crack of Silas Crow's whip split the air, though it struck nothing but ground. Less talking, more picking, the overseer shouted from his position on horseback at the field's edge. Y'all think this cotton gonna pick itself? The workers bent lower, hands moving faster. Isaiah felt Crow's eyes on them and forced himself to focus only on the cotton, on the repetitive motion that had become second nature over the years. The overseer had been watching everyone more carefully since Thomas's failed escape, his patrols more frequent, his suspicions more easily aroused. As Crow rode past, Isaiah risked a glance toward the big house. Somewhere in there, Hannah was going about her duties, probably helping Mrs. Belmont with her preparations for Charleston. The thought of her so close yet untouchable made his chest ache. They hadn't been able to meet since the night in the tobacco barn. The risk was too great with Crow's increased vigilance. The morning stretched into afternoon, the sun climbing higher and hotter. Isaiah's back screamed in protest, his fingers raw despite the calluses built up over years of labor. Around him, other workers sang, not the spirituals that carried hidden messages, but simple work songs to keep the rhythm, to make the hours pass. He joined in mechanically, his voice blending with the others, while his thoughts remained fixed on the map he'd memorized, the route they would take, the contacts they would need. When the dinner break finally came, the workers trudged to the shade of the live oaks at the field's edge. The meal was the same as always, cornmeal mush and a small piece of salt pork, barely enough to sustain them through the afternoon's labor. Isaiah ate without tasting, his eyes scanning the other workers. Mercy sat with a group of older women, her thin frame somehow still radiating strength despite her years. She caught his eye and gave the slightest nod. Everything was in place on her end, the herbs and medicines they would need for the journey, carefully hidden away. Abigail sat nearby with Ruth in her lap, feeding the child small bites from her own meager portion. The little girl's presence was both their greatest hope and their greatest vulnerability. A 4-year-old couldn't understand the need for absolute silence, couldn't comprehend the dangers they would face, but Abigail would rather die than leave her daughter to grow up enslaved. Isaiah. Moses settled beside him, his massive frame somehow folding into the small space. Samuel came to me this morning. Before dawn. Isaiah tensed. What did he want? Wanted to know if we could move the plan up. Said he can't wait another month, can't stand another day of this. Moses took a slow drink from his water gourd. I told him no. Told him the plan is the plan, and changing it now would get us all killed or worse. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect from a 16-year-old boy with more anger than sense. Moses' voice was gentle despite the harsh words. He's hurting, Isaiah. They all are. But that boy's hurt is turning into something dangerous. Isaiah rubbed his face, feeling the grit of cotton dust and dried sweat. "I'll talk to him." "You better, and soon." Moses glanced toward where Samuel sat with Elijah, the boy's jaw tight with barely suppressed fury. Because if he does something foolish, it won't just be him that pays the price. The afternoon work was even more grueling than the morning. The sun seemed determined to wring every drop of moisture from their bodies, and the cotton sacks grew impossibly heavy. Isaiah's mind drifted, despite his efforts to stay focused. Imagining the journey ahead, the swamps they would need to cross, the dogs that would hunt them, the patrollers who would shoot first and ask questions never, but also the North Star they would follow, the safe houses that waited along the route, the promise of Canada and true freedom. As the sun finally began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Isaiah found himself working near Samuel and Elijah. He waited until Crow's attention was elsewhere, then spoke quietly without looking at them. "Tonight, after midnight, the old corn crib behind the tobacco barn." Samuel's hands stilled for just a moment before resuming their work. "We already had a meeting. We need another one. Just us. You, me, Moses, and Elijah. We need to talk." "About what?" The boy's voice was hard. "About waiting? About being patient while they work us to death? About staying alive long enough to see freedom," Isaiah said flatly. "About not throwing away 2 years of planning because you can't control your anger for a few more weeks." Elijah touched her brother's arm, a silent plea for calm. Samuel jerked away but didn't argue further. When the overseer finally called an end to the day's labor, Isaiah's sack weighed 73 pounds. He'd counted the bowls obsessively, anything to keep his mind occupied. He hauled it to the weighing station, where Crow recorded each worker's total with suspicious eyes, always looking for someone who hadn't picked enough, who deserved punishment. As Isaiah headed toward the slave quarters, he saw Hannah emerging from the big house, carrying a basket of linens to the wash house. Their eyes met for just a heartbeat, and in that brief moment, he saw his own exhaustion and determination reflected back at him. Then she was past, and he continued on as if she were just another house servant, as if his heart didn't ache with longing every time he saw her. The evening meal was the same as dinner, cornmeal mush, this time with a thin vegetable soup that was more water than substance. Isaiah ate in his cabin with the other field hands, listening to their exhausted conversation, their complaints about the heat and the work and Crow's cruelty. He said little, conserving his energy for the meeting ahead. When full darkness fell, he lay on his pallet and waited. Around him the other men settled into sleep, their snores and restless movements filling the small space. Isaiah counted the hours by the position of the moon through the cabin's single window, waiting until he was certain everyone was deeply asleep. At midnight, he rose silently and slipped out into the night. The plantation was never truly silent after dark. Insects sang in the trees, night birds called to each other, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Isaiah moved through the shadows like a ghost, avoiding the paths Crow's patrollers would take, staying close to the buildings where the darkness was deepest. The corn crib was an old structure, half collapsed, and no longer used for storage. It sat behind the tobacco barn in a tangle of weeds and vines, forgotten by everyone except those who needed a secret place to meet. Isaiah slipped inside and waited, his eyes adjusting to the deeper darkness within. Moses arrived first, his bulk somehow moving silently despite his size. Then Elijah, her slight form barely visible in the shadows. Finally Samuel, his anger preceding him like a storm front. "This better be important," the boy said without preamble. "I need my sleep." "Sit down," Isaiah said quietly. "We need to talk about what happens next." "We already know what happens next," Samuel shot back. "We wait. We always wait. Wait for the right time, wait for the right conditions, wait until we're too old or too broken to run." "Samuel," Elijah began, but her brother cut her off. "No, I'm tired of being quiet. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine while they work us like animals. Thomas tried to run and look what happened to him. They beat him half to death, and now they're selling him to Mississippi. That's what waiting gets you." "Thomas ran without a plan," Moses said calmly. "Without supplies, without knowing the route, without contacts to help him. He ran on desperation and hope, and that's why he failed." At least he tried. And now he's going to die in a Mississippi cotton field, Isaiah said, his voice hard. Is that what you want? To throw away your life and your sister's life because you can't wait a few more weeks? Samuel's jaw worked, his hands clenching into fists. You don't understand. You've got Hannah. You've got something to hold on to. But me and Elijah, we've got nothing but each other, and any day Belmont could decide to sell one of us. Any day we could be separated, and then what? What good is your careful plan if we're not together to use it? The raw pain in the boy's voice cut through Isaiah's frustration. He'd been so focused on the logistics of the escape, on the timing and the route and the supplies, that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be 16 and terrified and powerless. You're right, Isaiah said quietly. I can't promise you that nothing will happen before we run. I can't promise we'll all make it, or that we'll stay together. But I can promise you this, if we go now without finishing our preparations, we will fail. And failure means death or worse. The Belmonts leave for Charleston in 3 weeks, Moses added. 3 weeks, Samuel. That's all we're asking you to wait. 3 weeks, and then we go. Elijah moved closer to her brother, taking his hand. We've waited this long. We can wait a little longer. Together. Samuel's shoulders sagged, the anger draining out of him to reveal the frightened boy beneath. I'm just so tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of pretending. Tired of belonging to someone else. We all are, Isaiah said gently. But tired people make mistakes, and we can't afford any mistakes. Not now, not when we're this close. The four of them sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of their shared burdens settling over them like a heavy blanket. Finally, Samuel nodded. 3 weeks, but if anything happens before then, if Belmont tries to sell me or Elijah, we go early. Plan or no plan. Agreed, Isaiah said. If circumstances change, we adapt, but we don't panic, and we don't act rashly. We stay smart. Moses cleared his throat. While we're here, we should review the first leg of the route. Make sure everyone knows exactly where we're going once we leave the plantation. For the next hour, they went over the details. The swamp they would enter 2 miles north of the plantation, the creek they would follow to throw off the dogs, the abandoned chapel where they would meet up if anyone got separated. Isaiah drew a rough map in the dirt floor with a stick, marking landmarks and distances. We travel only at night, he reminded them. We rest during the day in whatever cover we can find. We don't light fires, we don't talk unless absolutely necessary, and we move as if every shadow hides an enemy. Because every shadow might, Moses said grimly. Hannah's been listening to the Belmonts' conversations, Isaiah continued. She says they're planning to be in Charleston for at least 6 weeks, maybe longer. That gives us time to get far north before they even realize we're gone. Crow will notice right away, but without the colonel here to authorize hiring a professional tracker, he'll have to make do with local patrollers. That's our advantage. Elijah spoke up for the first time, her voice soft but clear. What about Ruth? How do we keep her quiet when we need to hide? Mercy's preparing something, Isaiah said. A tea that will make her sleep deeply without hurting her. Abigail knows she might need to use it. Samuel shook his head. That's a lot of trust to put in a 4-year-old child. It's a lot of trust to put in all of us, Moses said. Any one of us could betray the others. Any one of us could break under pressure. But we don't, because we're family. Not by blood, maybe, but by choice. And that's stronger than any chain they can put on us. As they prepared to leave, Isaiah caught Samuel's arm. I know it's hard, but we're going to make it. All of us together. The boy met his eyes, and Isaiah saw the struggle there. The desire to believe warring with the fear of hope. Finally, Samuel nodded. 3 weeks, he said. I can do 3 weeks. They slipped out of the corn crib one at a time, disappearing back into the night. Isaiah waited until last, making sure no one was watching before he emerged. The moon had moved across the sky, marking the passage of hours he should have spent sleeping. As he made his way back to his cabin, a figure stepped out of the shadows near the tobacco barn. Isaiah's heart stopped, his mind racing through possible explanations, possible escapes. Easy, Hannah whispered, and relief flooded through him so intensely it made him dizzy. It's just me. What are you doing out here? He breathed, glancing around to make sure they were alone. If anyone sees, I had to see you. Just for a moment. She moved closer. and even in the darkness he could see the strain on her face. Mrs. Belmont is getting suspicious. She asked me today if I knew anything about Thomas's escape attempt, if I'd heard any talk among the servants. What did you tell her? That I don't listen to field hand gossip, that I'm too busy with my duties to pay attention to such things. Hannah's voice shook slightly. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes. She's watching me, Isaiah, all the time now. He wanted to take her in his arms, to promise her everything would be all right, but they couldn't risk even that simple comfort. 3 more weeks. Can you manage it? I have to. She looked up at him, and the moonlight caught the tears on her cheeks. I'm so scared. Not of running. I'm scared of what happens if we don't run. Scared they'll sell me, or sell you, or we'll grow old here and die without ever being free. That won't happen, Isaiah said fiercely. I promise you, Hannah. We're getting out. In 3 weeks, we'll be on our way north. And someday soon, we'll be in Canada, and I'll marry you properly, and no one will ever own us again. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I should go. If someone notices I'm gone, be careful. And Hannah? He waited until she looked back at him. I love you. I love you too, she whispered. Then she was gone, a shadow disappearing into shadows. Isaiah stood alone in the darkness for a long moment, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. 8 lives depended on his planning, his caution, his ability to anticipate every danger. 8 lives, and the life he hoped to build with Hannah in freedom. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that would guide them north when the time came. The same stars that had guided countless others along the Underground Railroad, some to freedom, some to recapture, some to death. 3 weeks, 21 days, 504 hours. Isaiah returned to his cabin and lay down on his pallet, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind turned over every detail, every possible complication, every contingency plan. Outside, a mockingbird sang its complex song, mimicking the calls of a dozen other birds. And in the big house, in the overseer's quarters, in the slave cabins scattered across the plantation, people slept or didn't sleep, dreamed or didn't dream, each carrying their own burdens, their own hopes, their own fears. The cotton harvest continued. The days grew incrementally shorter, and slowly, inexorably, the moment of truth approached.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.